Greetings and good afternoon to one and all present here in today's session. The topic that we are going to discuss today is free falling Zambian Kwacha. What does it mean for corporate organizations? We welcome the speaker. It's a time to introduce the speaker. We welcome the speaker, Dr. Elliot Musonda Mumba, Dean College of Business, Arts and Science of Texila American University, Zambia. He also served as a dean for research and graduate studies in Livingston International University of Tourism, Excellence and Business Management. On behalf of the university, we welcome all for this particular session.
Good afternoon, everybody who's participating in this talk. As you have heard, my name is Elliot Mumba. I'm the Dean College of Business, Art and Sciences. We are looking at the free fall of Zambian Kwacha and what it means for corporate organizations. Just to share with you today's exchange rates, as you can see from the screen there, I'll pick for a dollar, USD dollars. The bid is 18 Kwacha, 18.4552, and offer is 18.5052. That's the Bank of Zambia rate. The question is, where are we coming from? I think 6 months ago, the bid price was somewhere around 10, and the offer price was also around 10. So that's about over 50% depreciation of the Kwacha within that period. Now, we want to find out what does this mean actually if the Kwacha is depreciating so much for corporate world. I did a bit of interviews with some people in the sectors of the economy of Zambia. And one of the persons from the Zambia Institute for Policy Analysis and Research. This is a Zambian think tank under the Ministry of Finance. And this is what he says, the person I interviewed. The Kwacha's rapid depreciation against major convertible currencies coupled with the COVID-19 pandemic has put pressure on the local businesses in Zambia. So we want to find out what type of pressure is this. Again, I asked the Vice President of Zambia Association of Manufacturers, and he says government's move to ease liquidity by injecting 2.5 billion Kwacha into the local economy will be in vain. The reason is that the Kwacha is rapidly depreciating. And according to the market players, the Kwacha sharply depreciated to hit an historical 18 Kwacha per dollar psychological barrier for the first time in Zambia's history by close of business last Tuesday, which yesterday. And by close of business Friday last week, the local currency had posted further losses to slide to an average of 18.16 and 18.95 per dollar for bid and offer, respectively. This was according to the First National Bank, which is one of the commercial banks in Zambia. And in an interview, Kaida also disclosed that the imported goods had become expensive due to continued Kwacha depreciation, which had the effect of pushing prices up and shrinking business volumes. This has resulted to reduced consumer spending. Now, that is very, very important. If consumer spending is reducing, these have got a lot of implications on the corporate world. Kaida further said, well, prices have gone up. Prices have gone up and the number of customers buying has reduced. As regards to the COVID-19 virus, I wouldn't say much about other businesses because I wouldn't know. I'm working from home, we have closed. We are only getting inquiries through phone calls. if we do close a deal, that is when we are mobilizing technical things, so it's really tough. The price increase is due to the Kwacha depreciation to other currencies. This is what Kaila was actually alluding to. A further review of some documents from the ministry, and this is the concern that the Minister of Finance, Dr. Bwalyangandu, announced. He announced that government will release about 2.5 billion to dismantle domestic arrears and ease liquidity challenges faced by contractors and suppliers in the countries amidst the virus pandemic. He further went on to say that, I certainly think that increasing liquidity in the Zambian market, we are already having a challenge with liquidity prior to COVID-19, and the recommendations were that we needed to dismantle arrears. So COVID-19 is bringing in a new spanner into the works. We have to recognize the fact that our treasury and its ability to respond was already concerned. So whereas the amount of that has been recommended as a level of relief to increase liquidity, even on dismantling of arrears to the contractors. This is a welcome move, definitely. This is the government view of how the Kwacha has affected. However, given the fact that our exchange rate, for example, our position with the Kwacha continues to deteriorate, there are a lot of challenges with that, and there are issues to deal with inflation. That is Zulu again. So in as much as we are doing what we can to enhance liquidity in the market, there are other fundamental factors that are making this an even tighter economic situation for them. Going forward, we do have to look at some long-term measures and look beyond COVID-19 to better establish how the country can respond in a way that will minimize the impact of COVID-19 on the overall performance of the economy. This, of course, can help the Kwacha stabilize. In basic terms, the recent free falling of the Kwacha means that the currency is depreciating and losing its purchasing power in relation to other convertible currencies. What is normal? World currencies such as the dollar, the euro, the pound sterling, and others actually also fluctuate in value at some point in the money cycle. It's normal in foreign exchange markets. However, I hasten to add that what we are witnessing with the Zambian Kwacha is really high comparably. In this context, I use the term depreciation because Zambian Kwacha has been losing value over a sustainable period of time, especially the last 6 months. The problem with the Zambian Kwacha is big, long-term, and systemic in nature. The loss of the value could be because of a number of factors, both internally and externally to Zambia. Allow me to give you some basic facts of what may be causing our Kwacha to be battered so much by other international currencies. One thing you can remember that not long ago, the Kwacha was rated the worst performing currency in the world. That was Fitch Rating Agency. And before the COVID was actually came on the scene. Here are some of the factors which I think are causing the Kwacha to lose its value nearly every day. Okay? The first factor is actually the inflationary pressures. Inflation is probably one of the biggest causes of the Kwacha depreciation. Remember, the inflation was somewhere around 70%. It's now hovering around 15%. Since June 2019, the inflation has risen from 7.2% to over 16% in May 2020. An increase of almost 130%. You can imagine. In general terms, prices and the wages people used to pay for them tend to rise rather than fall, and that's true around the world. When prices are rising in one country relative to others, however, that country's currency will depreciate. This is what has happened to Zambia and Kwacha. People there have to spend more money to purchase the same goods or the same amount of goods and services. One unit of currency, a dollar or a rand, whatever, doesn't go as much as it used to, and it's losing ground against other currencies at the moment due to inflationary pressures. Okay, let's forget about the period of civil servants. But again, the other factor is the national trade deficit. The national trade deficit is that Zambia is importing more than it's exporting. Zambia's total value of imports far exceeding the total value of its exports, mainly from copper. This means that Zambia is buying more from the rest of the world than it's selling to the world. Zambia, therefore, has what we call a trade deficit in technical terms. Zambia's trade deficit has now led the currency depreciation because it reduces demand for the Zambian kwacha. Since very few people are buying goods and services from Zambia due to COVID restrictions, no one outside Zambia has any use for the Zambian kwacha. You can note that. The basic rule of supply and demand tells us that when there is a less demand for something, its value will fall. Foreign currency markets operate on supply and demand just like any other markets. The problem is that Zambia's economy is not robust enough to make the Zambian kwacha attractive as a means of exchange, and that any shock in the external environment batters their kwacha very highly. The other factor is the monetary policy. One of the ways in which the Zambian government may have tried to manage the national economy is by adjusting the monthly supply through the monthly money supply through the monthly review, what they call the monetary policy rate, which the Bank of Zambia set as a controlling mechanism. Remember that the Bank of Zambia, which is the Central Bank of Zambia, is mandated under the Bank of Zambia Act of 1996 to do just that. The Bank of Zambia is supposed to try and strike a balance of making sure there is enough money in circulation in the country to accommodate economic growth without having so much out there that it triggers inflation to get high and out of hand. So if the policy rate is not properly fixed, it may trigger the depreciation. The other factor is that Zambian kwacha is depreciating because Zambia has got very low reserves due to debt servicing and low production of copper. This is what the Minister of Finance alluded to. He said that the depreciation of the kwacha against major convertible currencies is due to low reserves caused by debt servicing and low production and supply in the copper in the mining sector. Zambia is a mono economy that depends mainly on copper exports for its foreign exchange earnings. A sustained depreciation of the currency can lead to inflationary pressures, affect the economic growth of the country, and the cost of servicing the national debt and raise the cost of doing business for most companies in different sectors who depend on imported materials and other inputs. Now, the big question in this discussion was, what does it mean for corporations? Now, corporations have someone services depending on their business orientation, their business model. They can experience different effects. A simple answer would be a lot of downward adjustment on operations and downsizing in labor levels by most corporations, especially those whose products have elastic demand. Why so? When the prices of goods and services rise, naturally again a certain income level, the demand for those goods and definitely fall. This is this simple law of demand and supply. This fall in demand for goods and services will result in the loss of revenue by most corporations. Please note that. And the loss of revenue results in companies not having sufficient financial resources to meet their financial obligations, such as paying salaries, bills, taxes, suppliers, and amongst others. So that would be generally what it means for most organizations, for most corporations. Some will respond by adjusting downwards in operations. Many corporations depend on imported inputs such as raw materials, fuel, and so forth. And you feel the knock-on effect of high exchange rate that will naturally increase the cost of imported inputs. Once inputs become expensive to get, many companies will slowly downsize their operations because on one hand, they are facing rising interest rates, and on the other, falling demand for their goods and services. Definitely that is a big problem. This will result in their margins to be squeezed and therefore threatening job security for thousands of people in Zambia. Because of the increased cost of doing business, for many businesses that use fixed contracts for buying import raw materials, this means temporary fluctuation in the exchange rate will have little effect. The price of buying imports will be set for up to 12 to 18 months ahead. Exporters may also use future options to hedge against the drastic movements in the exchange rates. These fixed contracts help to reduce the uncertainty around exchange rates movements and means that there can be time lags between changes in the exchange rate and changing costs for the business. Basically, this is a measure that companies in sectors which are very sensitive to shock can use to hedge against exchange rate risks that we are talking about. Remember that currency depreciation may have a positive effect on sales, especially on the business on a business that deals with foreign parties, regardless of the currency that's being used. If your business requires payment in Kwacha, the customers may buy more of the products because their currency converts more Kwacha. Okay. Well, the customers will convert their hard currency to more Kwacha and they can buy more goods of that company. The company may also benefit if it accepts payment in foreign currency. So this is the benefit, this is a different effect of a foreign Kwacha on a company that actually trades in foreign exchange. When the company converts the currency into Zambian Kwacha, it will have more Zambian Kwacha because of increased exchange rate. This is an advantage or a benefit. Businesses catering to foreign tourists must also see more sales when the local currency depreciates. Shops, restaurants, and other businesses in tourism-friendly cities often see more business when the Kwacha falls, since overseas visitors see the cheaper Zambia as a more attractive destination. They can get more mileage out of their own currency once they convert it to Zambian Kwacha. Again, this is a huge benefit. Effects on inflation of the falling Kwacha. One indirect effect of weakening Zambian Kwacha is often higher inflation for businesses and consumers. Because so many goods used in the Zambian Kwacha are imported, high import prices can lead to high prices overall in general. Inflation can hit businesses that can't raise their own costs to keep up with rising cost of supplies and rising wages for the people. Businesses are generally impacted less by inflation if they can pass the costs on to their own customers. Okay, some of the sectors like mergers and acquisitions, they will find themselves in an advantageous position because the companies that are actually valued in Zambia, they will be much cheaper for their clients to buy those companies. For them, that's good news. And the shareholders will be looking forward to sell such companies. Effect on interest payments. If you are financing your business, especially from debt financing, the interest the company receives from a foreign investment, such as foreign bond, may be paid in foreign currency. The amount of the stronger foreign currency converts to more Kwacha. When the Kwacha is depreciated, this can benefit the business. But interest the company makes on a loan to a foreign party are typically dominated in the party's currency. These payments affect the business negatively because it costs more Kwacha to convert to that foreign currency. For instance, the euro bonds held by the government of the Republic of Zambia will cost more Kwacha to cover the interest rates. That's one example of the effect that I can talk about. Now, what are the effects of exchange rate on the Zambian business? The exchange rate will play an important role for firms who export goods and import raw materials, especially the depreciation will make exports cheaper and exporting firms will benefit. However, firms importing raw materials will face high cost of imports. An appreciation makes exports more expensive and reduces the competitiveness of exporting firms. However, at least raw materials, e.g. oil, will be cheaper following an appreciation. So those are areas that we can say can impact a business in different ways, depending on the orientation of that particular business. Now, you can see how I compare who are the winners and the losers in this situation. Winners will include exporters, domestic tourism industry, sorry, that's supposed to be domestic tourism industry. Workers gaining jobs in export industry and economic growth might increase in that case. Who are the losers? Consumers who buy imports, firms who buy imported raw materials, and those on fixed income wages whose inflation rise faster. Foreign exporters and certain tourism industries. So in short, it means differently for different companies, depending on the business model, sector which is affected, and the orientation. So other factors, the exchange rates will affect the business, would depend on the many other factors which will actually affect the sorry. Now the nature of goods that you are selling can affect. Some goods have got inelastic demand. Inelastic means that you can change the price, the demand will not change. But if you have got elastic demand, it means a small change in the price will have a big change in the demand. So those companies who are dealing in elastic goods, whose demand for goods are elastic, will be negatively affected. Evidence suggests that Zambian goods are increasing in price inelastic, and after depreciation, there is relatively small increase in demand. Depending on the percentage of raw materials imported, if a Zambian firm imports raw materials and sells to the domestic market, it may lose out from the depreciation. If a firm imports only a small percentage of raw materials from abroad and sells to countries outside Zambia, then it will benefit more from a depreciation of the kwacha. It also depends why there was an appreciation or depreciation. If there is an appreciation in the kwacha because Zambian labor productivity is increasing, then the firm are likely to be able to absorb the stronger kwacha. However, if the kwacha rises due to speculation on weaknesses of other currencies, like it was in the crisis in 2011, then the firms may become uncompetitive because the rise in the value of the kwacha is not related to increased productivity or competitiveness. This situation can also be the case. Of course, I've talked about inflation and fixed contracts, which may take 12 to 18 months, and now you can hedge against the exchange rates. Countermeasures can be many, but normally they are at a macro level, and they are focused by the government to make sure that they stabilize the exchange rate and protect local producers. To prevent further depreciation, government through Bank of Zambia might increase national reserves in the commercial banks, set a policy rate high, and other measures. To prevent imports from replacing local production, government sometimes increase taxes or administrative procedures on certain imported goods, so that local consumers remain likely to buy local products. Government can also offer subsidies to local producers to help them to remain competitive and cope with lower local prices and less profitable exports. I think I end my presentation. Maybe I can open for a discussion.
Thank you, Dr. Elliot. It was really an interesting presentation on the current situation which has been there in Zambia in terms of the kwacha depreciation when compared to the last couple of years. So now the floor is open for the questions. So the ones who are having questions, please either you can give an alert by raising your hands, or if you could unmute your mics one by one, and you can put your questions to the speaker so that the speaker would be able to answer your questions.
Doc.
Thank you.
Yes.
This is Derek Koma from Mongo Trades. I want to know how the depreciation of the kwacha in the long run is likely to affect or to impact negatively on the learning institution in Zambia, more especially the private institutions.
That's a very good question. A university, like any other corporation, has got objectives. For it to keep on running, it requires a certain level of sales. Now, let's assume a student who is outside Zambia. the student who is outside Zambia will actually be at an advantage compared to a student who is local here. Because the student who is sponsored by a local sponsor or a parent in Zambia, depreciation of the kwacha means that the cost of goods and services will rise up. And there are very few companies who can actually catch up in responding to the inflationary pressures on the wages of the sponsors. And therefore, that student is likely to lose that sponsorship and be disadvantaged. However, a student who is outside, because he's trading in foreign currencies, that student is easily going to manage. And to answer you short, the university may be impacted either positively or negatively. For instance, a university which has got more foreign students compared to domestic students will be in an advantageous position in the long run. I hope you have got me, Derek.
Yes, Doc.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so Dr. Elliot, we have the next question from John
Yes.
K. Can the recently discovered gold resources in northwestern Zambia be mobilized fast enough to avert the looming economic crisis?
Come again, Zambia has discovered gold.
Can the
what
recently discovered gold resources in northwestern Zambia be mobilized fast enough to avert the looming economic crisis?
Yes, of course. There are gold mines now in Zambia that have been discovered by the government and the process. To put it short, gold is sold into international markets, and instead of just depending on the copper as a source of foreign exchange earnings, it means that Zambia will have an extra advantage through gold, because gold will be sold on international market just like copper, and therefore will have enough foreign exchange. And our national trade deficit, the gap will reduce, and that will definitely impact positively.
Doc, I have another question.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, my question is, you on the solution for the free fall of the kwacha in Zambia, one of the measures that you've highlighted is to increase the policy rate by the Bank of Zambia. Now, I want to understand more, because according to my understanding, once the policy rate is increased, that means that even the borrowing cost will be a little bit high, and a few people will be able to borrow from the banks. That means that more and more small and medium enterprises will be squeezed more, because they cannot borrow to maybe recapitalize their businesses due to the impact of the coronavirus and other things. What is your say on that?
Yes, it's true. It's true because remember a policy rate has to strike a balance between having too much money in circulation triggers inflation. Again, if you want to siphon out that money from the market, use the same policy rate to increase liquidity or reduce liquidity. But the most important is to balance, to put up with like the cost of borrowing, or so that people can access the needed capital in the financial market, and triggering inflation. The good policy rate must strike balance both for that, so that businesses can access the borrowing and the inflation is kept to minimum. But the best way to actually counter this is to increase exports through production of exportable goods and services. Then we can have enough foreign currency and the kwacha will stabilize.
So would you say increasing the policy rate would still be a good tool to use to deal with the inflation, despite its most multiplier effect, negative effect that it would have on the SMEs?
Yes and no. Yes, in the sense that yes, it will. The policy rate actually tries to sort of work as a valve for money to circulate in the system. At the same time, for the banks to survive, they cannot actually maybe lend at that point rate. They have to add other costs, and that means the cost of borrowing will be high. Again, a situation where we are now, the most important goal now should be to stabilize the Kwacha, and then from there you can look at other objectives. It's not the best method, but it's like an operation to remove something which is cancerous. The operation is not good, but it's a necessary evil, so to say. So the policy rate can help in these instances because I don't see any other way out, because COVID-19, we don't have a time frame where it will end, and we didn't know how far in the future it will be stabilized. So
Thank you, doctor. That was an interesting question was raised. Yeah.
any other question?
Yeah, we have before we close the session, we'll take the last two questions. The last one is the Basel Committee has announced measures of amending transitional arrangements for regulatory capital treatment of credit accounting. In line with Zambia, please share with us any measures Bank of Zambia are making during this COVID-19 era.
Yes, Bank of Zambia, based on their ability, they have also announced some measures, some stimulus packages. For instance, I understand there is a 10 billion stimulant package for small businesses to access during this period. And there's another 2.5 billion kwacha meant for small business. How these stimulus packages are structured, I don't have information on how they are going to help out in this turbulent time. But they have taken measures. For instance, certain taxes, taxes and have been forgiven to some sectors and so forth. So there are a lot of things that the government have done in this case, I would say. But how it's working, I haven't looked at how these things are working. Okay.
Okay, doctor, I think the question was answered. That's fantastic. So before we close the session, it's time to thank all our participants who had able to manage their busy schedule to be a part of this particular session on free falling Kwacha and what does it mean to the corporate organizations. I believe the people who have participated are from different corporate organizations and they would be able to have some insights to discuss with their supervisors to pass the overall outcome of the session to have the betterment of their organization. So thank you, speaker, for your available time on delivering a wonderful presentation on the topic. And we will meet soon with another interesting topic, most likely in next 2 weeks from now on the economy of the country. Thank you so much once again, participants. Thank you so much, speaker, for the session.
Thank you very much. And I would like to thank all the participants for your wonderful contributions, and I encourage you to attend the next one.
Thank you.
Thank you.